Sadi Gaurava. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. We continue reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 29, Text 38. And we have been hearing the explanation of the story of Puranjana by Nārada Muni. So Chirad Eva Rajarishe.
So Achirat Eva Rajarishe
Syad Achyuta Kathashraya.
Syat Achyuta Katha Ashrayah
Shinvata Shraddha Dhanasya.
Shrunvata Shaddadhanasya
Nityada Syad Adhiyata.
Nityada Syat Adhiyatah.
Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. O best of kings, one who is faithful, who is always hearing the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is always engaged in the culture of Krishna consciousness and in hearing of the Lord's activities, very soon becomes eligible to see the Supreme Personality of Godhead face to face. Constant engagement in the transcendental loving service of Vasudev means constantly hearing the glories of the Lord. The principles of Bhakti Yoga, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Adasevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakhyam, Atma Nivedanam are the only means by which perfection can be attained. Simply by hearing of the glories of the Lord, one is elevated to the transcendental position. So hearing, we can see there is so much power in hearing, but hearing about the Lord, glories of the Lord, it's different when we are hearing about material things. And it's different when we are hearing the glories of Krishna or his devotees. The more we hear about Krishna, the more we hear about the pure devotees, the more we can get disentangled from the material world. And the more we hear the affairs of the material world, the more entangled we get. And here, by hearing, here, we are reading, by hearing, very soon one becomes eligible to see God face to face. You know, we always wanting to see some famous personality, meet a famous personality. We may make appointment or meeting months in advance. We may ask some, you know, or some contacts, or do you know this famous person? Here we can see the most famous person face to face. No one is more famous than God. And we can see him face to face. Simply how? By hearing. By hearing from Bhagavatam, hearing from Bhagavad Gita, from the devotees. And we can see God face to face. So it's a simple process. It's a sublime process. Just hearing. One may say, oh, but I'm hearing the pastimes of Krishna, but it happened 5,000 years ago. So how is it relevant? But it's not that the pastimes happened 5,000 years ago and finished. No, they're constantly happening. They're happening in some other universe right now, and they are eternally happening in the spiritual world. Krishna's pastimes are not like temporary. They're not temporary. They're eternal. They're continuing to happen. And by hearing about Krishna's pastimes, his name, form, his qualities, glories, by hearing his glories, we get purified, we get spiritual advancement, we can be situated on the spiritual platform, we can get liberation. Hearing, anyone remembers who got the perfection by hearing? By hearing, he got perfection, got liberation, went back home, back to Godhead.
Parikshit Maharaj.
Parikshit Maharaj, that's right. By hearing Bhagavatam, he got liberated. Okay. Yatra Bhagavata Rajan.
Yatra Bhagavata Rajan.
Sadhava Vishadashaya.
Sadhavo Vishadasayah.
Bhagavad Kathana
Bhagavad Guna Anukathana
Shravana Vyagrachetasa.
Shravana Vragyah Chetasah
Tasmin Mahan Mukharita Madhube Charitra
Tasmin Mahatmo Karita Madhubhitra Charitra
Piyusha Shesha Sarita Parita Shravante
Piyush Shesha Sarit Paritas
Aye Pibanti Avatishu Nripa Gadakarnes
Ye pivanti taye pivanti nripgad karnatan
Tanas Prashanti Ashanatrid Bhaya Shoka Moha.
tana sprishanti ashayan tritbhay shokha moha.
And dear King, in the place where pure devotees live, following the rules and regulations, and thus purely conscious and engaged with great eagerness in hearing and chanting the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In that place, if one gets a chance to hear the constant flow of nectar, which is exactly like the waves of a river, one will forget the necessities of life, namely hunger and thirst, and become immune to all kinds of fear, lamentation, and illusion. The cultivation of Krishna consciousness is possible where great devotees live together and constantly engage in hearing and chanting the glories of the Lord. So, wherever the devotees are, there will always be Krishna Katha, because that's what they are constantly doing, engaging in hearing and chanting the glories of the Lord. In a holy place like Vrindavan, there are many devotees constantly engaged in chanting and hearing the glories of the Lord. If one gets the chance to hear from pure devotees in such a place, allowing the constant flow of the river of nectar to come out from the mouths of pure devotees, then the cultivation of Krishna consciousness becomes very easy. So, hearing from the pure devotees. When one is engaged in constantly hearing the glories of the Lord, he certainly rises above the bodily conception. Constant hearing, constant hearing. Arjuna asked Krishna, how can I control the mind? It's very difficult. Krishna says, by constant practice and detachment. Constant practice of what? Constantly hearing and chanting. When one is in the bodily conception, he feels the pangs of hunger and thirst, fear, lamentation, and illusion. But when one is engaged in hearing and chanting the glories of the Lord, it transcends the bodily conception. So when one is hearing Krishna Katha, one does not feel hunger and thirst. Then we may say, oh, but I'm not yet there. What do I do? Something wrong with me then. But, well, we don't need to feel any anxiety about that. We just simply continue to hear. And there will be at one point, if we constantly continue to hear, we will also be able to not feel the pangs of hunger and thirst, fear, lamentation, and illusion at one point. It's a gradual process after all. So the word Bhagavad Gunanu Kathana Shravana Vyagrachetasa, meaning always eager to find the place where the glories of the Lord are being heard and chanted, is significant in this verse. A businessman is always very eager to go to a place where business is transacted. Similarly, a devotee is very eager to hear from the lips of liberated devotees. So we can see how one who is differently motivated, where the eagerness is. Prabhupada is saying somebody who is eager, a businessman, he always will, of course, go to his business, where I can buy, sell more, where's the trading happening, or whatever. A devotee, where does he want to do? He always wants to associate with other devotees. He wants to hear and chant from the devotees. Prabhupada is saying liberated devotees. A devotee is eager to hear from pure devotee. As soon as one hears the glories of the Lord from the liberated devotees, he immediately becomes impregnated with Krishna consciousness. This is also confirmed in another verse. Satam prasangan mama virya samvito bhavanti hritkarna rasayana katha tajo sanad asva apavarga vartamani Shraddha Ratir Bhaktir Anukramishyate. In the Association of Pure Devotees, discussion of the pastimes and activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is very pleasing and satisfying to the ear and to the heart. So, hearing from the devotees, hearing from the pure devotees. So, discussion of the pastimes and activities of the Lord is pleasing and satisfying to the ear and to the heart. Sometimes we may hear some things, but in fact, our heart gets more restless, more uneasy. But when we hear the glories of the Lord, the heart becomes peaceful, pleased, more pacified. By cultivating such knowledge, one gradually becomes advanced on the path of liberation, and thereafter he's freed and his attraction becomes fixed. Then real devotion and devotional service begin. Bhagavatam 3:25-25. So Bhagavatam is also saying the same thing, that pure devotional service begins when one is liberated. After liberation, what does the soul do? After liberation, the soul engages in pure devotional service. And how to come to this liberated platform? Hearing from the pure devotees. In the association of pure devotees, one becomes attached to hearing and chanting the glories of the Lord. In this way, one can cultivate Krishna consciousness. And as soon as this cultivation is advanced, one can become faithful to the Lord, devoted to the Lord, and attached to the Lord. And thus, one can very quickly attain full Krishna consciousness. So one continues to associate with the devotees, continues to hear and chant in the association of devotees. And then gradually comes nishtha, faithful, complete faith, devoted to the Lord. There's ruchi, there's ashakti, attachment to the Lord is there. So these are the stages of devotional service. It begins by hearing, and then one can come to the stage of nishtha, come to the stage of ruchi, ashakti, and prema. Very quickly attain full Krishna consciousness. The secret of success in the cultivation of Krishna consciousness is hearing from the right person. Are we hearing from the right person? We have to decide that. We have to do our research work. We want to become expert. We want to send our children to the best universities. We do so much research. Oh, this university is good, that university is good. Similarly, we should do proper research work for our spiritual life. Who am I hearing from? Who should I be hearing from? Because after all, we are spirit souls, so it's very important. Hear from the devotees. A Krishna conscious person is never disturbed by the bodily necessities, namely eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. So the pure devotee, because he is already liberated, he already is on the Brahman platform. So the bodily needs does not affect him. He's not concerned with the bodily needs. That's the pure devotee. Now we may say, or we may try to imitate. Oh, yes, yes, yes. I don't need to eat, or I don't need to sleep. But then that's imitation, and that's not going to take us anywhere. Krishna Radha says in Bhagavad Gita, have balance. Eat how much one needs to eat. Sleep how much one needs to sleep. Keeping the mind and body together and engaging in devotional service. Eter upadruto nityam.
एतेर उपद्रुत्यो नित्यम्
Jiva loka swabhavajay.
जीवलोका स्वभावजे
Na karoti harirnunam.
न करोति हरिर्नूनं
kathamrita nidhavritim.
तथा अमृतो विद्वानतिम्.
Because the conditioned soul is always disturbed by the bodily necessities such as hunger and thirst, he has very little time to cultivate attachment to hearing the nectarian words of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Unless one is associated with devotees, he cannot cultivate Krishna consciousness. So, because our whole consciousness is, oh, I need to get some sleep, I need to get some good food, I'm hungry, I'm thirsty, I need some rest, I need some entertainment. You know, we are troubled by these things because we are in the body and the body has these demands. So, how to get this desire to hear, associate with devotees? Nirjan Bhajan, cultivating Krishna consciousness in a solitary place, is not possible for the neophyte, for he will be disturbed by the bodily necessities, eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. Nirjan Bhajan, like how the devotees, they go far away, they say, we are going to engage in devotional service by ourselves. I'm just going to sit there and I'm going to chant the whole day. But one has to be really on a very high advanced level to be able to do that. Why? Because we are under the modes of nature, so the modes will make us act. Let me do this, let me do that. But if we prematurely go thinking, oh, now I can retire from everything and I can just, alone go away somewhere alone, I can cultivate Krishna consciousness, is not very advised. That's what even when Arjuna was telling Krishna, I'm going to renounce, Krishna said, no, you do your duty, but do it for my pleasure. Offer the results to me. Fight for me, he said. So doing duty for Krishna. So we have both the duties. We have duties, material duties. We do those for the pleasure of Krishna, so they become spiritual also. And we also have spiritual duties, hearing and chanting, for the pleasure of Krishna. So being so disturbed, one cannot cultivate Krishna consciousness. We therefore see that devotees known as Sahajiya, who make everything very easy, do not associate with advanced devotees. Such persons, in the name of devotional activities, are addicted to all kinds of sinful acts, illicit sex, intoxication, gambling, and meat eating. There are many so-called devotees passing themselves off as devotees while engaging in these sinful activities. In other words, one who is influenced by sinful activity cannot be accepted as a person in Krishna consciousness. So, someone may go off somewhere. Say, I'm going to go, somebody says, oh, I'm going to go to Vrindavan and by myself, engage in devotional service by myself. It's very dangerous. Always good to be in the association of devotees, cultivating Krishna consciousness in the association of devotees. A person addicted to sinful life cannot develop Krishna consciousness as indicated in this verse. Prajapati Pati Sakshat
प्रजापति पति साक्षात्
Bhagavan Girisho Manu
भगवान् गिरीशो मनु
Dakshadaya Prajadhyaksha
दक्ष आदय प्रजा अध्यक्षा
Neshtika Sanakadaya
नैष्टिका सनकादयः
Marichir Atri Angirasa
मरीचि अत्रि अंगिरसो
Pulastya Pulaha Kratu
पुलस्त्या पुलः कृतु
Bhrigur Vashishta Iti Ete
भृगु वशिष्ठ इति एते
Mad Anta Brahmavadina
मत् अन्ता ब्रह्मवादिनः
Adyapi Vachaspatayas
अद्य अपि वाचस्पतय
Apo Vidya Samadhibi
तपो विद्या समाधिभिः
Pashyanto pina pashyanti.
Pashyanto na api pashyanti.
Pashyantam parameshwaram.
Pashyantam parameshwaram.
The most powerful Lord Brahma, the father of all progenitors, Lord Shiva, Manu, Daksh, and the other rulers of humankind, the four saintly first-class brahmacharis headed by Sanak and Sanatan, the great sages Marichi, Atri, Angira, Pulastya, Pulaha, Kratu, Bhrigu, and Vashishta, and my humble self Nārada, are all stalwart brahmanas who can speak authoritatively on Vedic literature. We are very powerful because of austerities, meditation, and education. Nonetheless, even after inquiring about the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whom we always see, we do not know perfectly about him. According to the foolish Darwinian theory of the anthropologists, it is said that 40,000 years ago, Homo sapiens had not appeared on this planet because the process of evolution had not reached that point. However, the Vedic histories, the Puranas and Mahabharata, relate human histories that extend millions and millions of years into the past. So, modern science tells us, 40,000 years ago, the civilized man was not there, not yet evolved. But we can see from our history, our scriptures, that human beings have existed since time immemorial, since the beginning of creation. In the beginning of creation, there was a very intelligent personality, Lord Brahma. And from him emanated all the Manus and the Brahmacharis, like Sanak and Sanatan, as well as Lord Shiva, the great sages, and Narad. So these great personalities are created right at the beginning of creation, which is like gazillions and gazillions of years ago, So that's why we say since time immemorial, since the creation. So civilized human beings have been there since the beginning of creation. All these personalities underwent great austerities and penances and thus became authorities in Vedic knowledge. Like how does a teacher become a teacher? A teacher in medical school will also have studied under a proper teacher, must have taken all the courses, the examination, and then they get the certificate. Okay, you can be a teacher. Similarly, these are great authorities to teach spiritual science. Great, great authorities to tell us about spiritual life. So they are authorities in Vedic knowledge. Just as they are authorities in material knowledge, they are authorities in Vedic knowledge. Perfect knowledge for human beings, as well as all living entities, is contained in the Vedas. All the above mentioned great personalities are not only powerful, being cognizant of past, present, and future, but are also devotees. So these great personalities, they're holding such powerful positions in the management of the universe. So they are powerful, they have great knowledge, and they know the past, present, and future. But the most important, they are all devotees. Still, in spite of their great education and knowledge, and despite their meeting the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Vishnu, they cannot actually understand the perfection of the living entity's relationship with Lord Vishnu. This means that these personalities are still limited as far as their knowledge of the unlimited is concerned. The conclusion is that simply by advancing one's knowledge, one cannot be accepted as an expert in understanding the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Supreme Personality of Godhead can be understood not by advanced knowledge, but by pure devotional service, as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 18:55. Bhaktya mam abhijanati, yavan yaschasmi tattvataha. Unless one takes to pure, transcendental devotional service, he cannot understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead in truth. So we may take up the path of knowledge. Even if we take up the path of knowledge, we will not be able to understand God. We need to engage in devotional service to be able to understand God. And Krishna, God himself, is saying that in Bhagavad Gita. Bhaktya mam abhijanati. I can be known only by devotional service. So pure transcendental devotional service which is not mixed with desire for fruitive result, desire for knowledge, or desire for mystic perfection. Everyone has some imperfect ideas about the Lord. So-called scientists and philosophical speculators are unable to understand the Supreme Lord by virtue of their knowledge. Knowledge is not perfect unless one comes to the platform of devotional service. This is confirmed by the Vedic version. So, what is perfect knowledge is when one can understand I'm spirit soul, part and parcel of Krishna, and I need to engage in devotional service to Krishna. And when one engages in devotional service, then that is perfect knowledge, because then one has completely understood one's constitutional position as spirit, as eternal spirit soul, as part and parcel of Krishna. Athapi te deva padambujadvaya prasada lesanugrahita evahi janati tattvam bhagavan mahimno nachanya ekopi chiram vichinvan. Bhagavatam 10, Canto 10, Chapter 14, Text 29. The speculators, the Gyanis, go on speculating about the Supreme Personality of Godhead for many, many hundreds of thousands of years. But unless one is favored by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one cannot understand his supreme glories. All the great sages mentioned in this verse have their planets near Brahmalok, the planet where Lord Brahma resides, along with four great sages, Sanak, Sanatan, Sanandana, and Sanat Kumar. These sages reside in different stars known as the southern stars, which circle the pole star. Okay, so, one may go on speculating. Oh, God may be like this, God must be like this, I believe God to be like this. Like this, one may speculate, but one cannot understand God by such speculation. Only when one has God's mercy can one understand God. So then Lord Brahma, he has his own planet that's called Brahmalok. Then the four sages, Sanak, Sanatan, Sanandana, and Sanat Kumar, they have different stars, which are called southern stars. They're going around the pole star. The pole star, called Dhruvalok, is the pivot of this universe, and all planets move around this pole star. All the stars are planets as far as we can see within this one universe. According to Western theory, all the stars are different suns, but according to Vedic information, there's only one sun within this universe. All the so-called stars are but different planets. So according to the Vedas, the stars are planets. There are many, many planets inside every universe, and there is one sun. Besides this universe, there are many millions of other universes, and each of them contains similar, innumerable stars and planets. So one may think that, well, this is the only universe that exists. No, the Vedas tell us there are innumerable universes. Millions of other universes are there. And inside these millions of universes, there are many, many of these different types of planets and stars. Innumerable. So it's not that life is only on this earth. There is life on other planets, in other universes. Shabda Brahmani Dushpare Charanta Uro Vistare Mantra Linger Vyavachinnam Bhajanto Na Viduparam. Despite the cultivation of Vedic knowledge, which is unlimited, and the worship of different demigods by the symptoms of Vedic mantras, demigod worship does not help one to understand the supreme powerful personality of Godhead. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 7.20, Kamestester Hrita Jnana Prapadyante Nya Devata Tam Tam Niyamam Asthaya Prakritya Niyata Swaya. Those whose minds are distorted by material desires surrender unto demigods and follow the particular rules and regulations of worship according to their own natures. So Krishna is saying in Bhagavad Gita that one who has too many material desires, he worships the demigods. Most people are interested in worshipping demigods to acquire powers. Each demigod has a particular power. For instance, the demigod Indra, the king of rain, has power to shower rain on the surface of the globe to give sufficient vegetation to the earth. This demigod is described in the Vedas Vajrahasta Purandara. Indra rules the water supply with a thunderbolt in his hand. The Vajra, the thunderbolt of Indra, is called Vajra. And Lord Indra, he's the one who decides how much rain is going to fall where. He's in charge of rainfall in this universe. Similarly, other demigods, Agni, Varuna, Chandra, Surya, have particular powers. All these demigods are worshipped in the Vedic hymns through a symbolic weapon. Therefore, it is said here, mantra linger vyavachinnam. By such worship, karmis may obtain the benediction of material opulence in the form of animals, riches, beautiful wives, many followers, and so on. By such material opulence, however, one cannot understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So one may worship the different demigods, one may cultivate Vedic knowledge, yet one cannot understand God by that. By worshipping demigods, sure, we can get a lot of material opulence, get a lot of, whatever we ask them, the desires get fulfilled, material desires, but cannot understand the Supreme Lord. So, Supreme Lord can be understood by devotional service. Yada yasya nugrahnati Bhagavan Atma Bhavita Sa Chahati Matim Loke Vedecha Parinishtitam. When a person is fully engaged in devotional service, he is favored by the Lord, who bestows his costless mercy. At such a time, the awakened devotee gives up all material activities and ritualistic performances mentioned in the Vedas. In the previous verse, those who are in knowledge have been described as unable to appreciate the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, by the path of knowledge, by the path of Gyan, one cannot understand God completely. Similarly, this verse indicates that those who are followers of the Vedic rituals, as well as those who are followers of fruitive activities, are unable to see the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In these two verses, both the karmis and jnanis are described as unfit to understand Him. So one may do a lot of these rituals which are mentioned in the Vedas. By that also one cannot understand God. We do the rituals to get some kind of opulence, some better position, or we take up the path of knowledge, mental speculation. We won't be able to understand God. We can't see God with this process. As described by Srila Rupa Goswami, only when one is completely free from mental speculation and fruitive activity, anyabhilashita shunyam jnana karma vyanavitam, one can engage in pure devotional service without being polluted by material desires. So, Srila Rupa Goswami, he gives the definition of pure devotional service. Means there is no more material desires. That soul, that living entity has no more material desire, no desire for any karmakand activities, no desire for any gyan activities, no desire for any mystic perfection. So he's completely free from all this, and then one can engage in pure devotional service. The significant word Atma Bhavita indicates that the Lord is awakened in one's mind if one constantly thinks of him. A pure devotee is always thinking of the lotus feet of the Lord. Savai Mana Krishna Padara Vindayo. A pure devotee cannot remain a moment without being absorbed in thoughts of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This constant thinking of the Lord is described in Bhagavad Gita as Satata Yuktanam, always engaging in the Lord's service. So Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, engage your mind in always thinking of me. We have a mind, and the mind, we're always thinking, and we're all thinking so many different things. So many thoughts come to our mind. But Krishna is saying what to think of. He's saying, think of me. So, and the pure devotee is doing that. He's always thinking of Krishna. He's absorbed in thoughts of Krishna. So that's how, because he's always thinking of Krishna, he's always engaging in Krishna's service. Bhajatam Priti Purvaka. This is devotional service in love and affection. Always thinking of Krishna. So whatever he's doing, he's always doing it for Krishna's pleasure. Whatever he's doing. Because the Supreme Personality of Godhead dictates to the pure devotee from within, the devotee is saved from all material activities. Even the Vedic ritualistic ceremonies are considered material activities, because by such activities one is simply elevated to other planetary systems, the residential abodes of the demigods. So, when one follows the path of Karmakand, a big section of the Vedas deals with that. Some Vedic rituals, just for the sake of rituals. Then with that, one goes to heavenly planets. But these are also material. The demigods' planets are material planets. The demigods also have material bodies. They also have to give up the body one day. So Lord Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita 9:25, Yanti Deva Vrata Devan, Pitrin Yanti Pitir Vrata, Bhutani Yanti Bhuteja, Yanti Madhyajino Pimam. Those who worship the demigods will take birth among the demigods. Those who worship ghosts and spirits will take birth among such beings. Those who worship ancestors go to the ancestors. And those who worship me will live with me. So Krishna is saying, whoever we worship, that's where we are going to go. We worship the demigods, we will go to demigods' planets. But the demigod planets are also inside the material world. It doesn't mean that we get out of this material world. We cannot get liberation by worshipping the demigods. We can get liberation only when we worship Krishna. The real liberation, the real mukti, liberation we can get when we worship Krishna. The word Atma Bhavita also indicates that a devotee is always engaged in preaching to deliver conditioned souls. It is said of the six Goswamis, Nana Shastra Vicharinaka Nipano Saddharma Samsthapako Lokanam Hitakarino. A pure devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is always thinking of how the fallen, conditioned souls can be delivered. So, what we are thinking, we have so many different thoughts in our head, in our mind. But a pure devotee, how he is thinking? He is thinking always of God. And he's thinking how he can deliver us, how he can get each of us to go back home, back to Godhead. This is why the devotee is the most compassionate. He's always thinking, oh, how I can take this suffering soul back to Godhead. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, influenced by the merciful devotees, attempt to deliver fallen souls, enlightens the people in general from within by his causeless mercy. So then Krishna also sees, God sees, oh my God, my devotee is trying his best to convince these people to take up devotional service, to go back home, back to Godhead. So then Krishna, he enlightens the people because he's the Paramatma. He gives them that knowledge from within that, yes, follow this path, do this. And that is Krishna's causeless mercy. Why is he giving his mercy? Because the devotee's mercy is there. So because Krishna is seeing that the devotee wants to give this person the mercy, Krishna gives the mercy. If a devotee is blessed by another devotee, he becomes free from karma kand and gyan kand activities, as confirmed in Brahma Samhita, Vedeshu Durlabham. The Supreme Personality of Godhead cannot be realized through karma kand and gyan kand. Adurlabham Atma Bhakta. The Lord is realized only by a sincere devotee. How we can actually realize Krishna? By engaging in devotional service. Not through the process of karma kand or gyan kand, but only through the process of bhakti. This material world, the cosmic manifestation, is created by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And the living entities have come here to enjoy themselves. So this material world that we find ourselves in, it has a creator. It's not that it automatically happened. Not that we were sleeping one night, there was no Taipei city. It was all just dust. And we were sleeping one night, and when we woke up, oh wow, the whole Taipei city is there. All the roads, the MRT, the malls, the buses, the whole infrastructure. Suddenly came. No, somebody has manifested it. This people, so much energy, time of the people involved. Similarly, this material world that we are seeing, the sun, the moon, the stars, the earth, who's the creator? The creator is God. God has created this material world. And then we are put here in this material world by God. Why? Because it's our desire to enjoy separate from Him, our desire to imitate Him, our desire to become Him. We cannot do that in the spiritual world. So He creates this facility of the material world for us to try to fulfill this desire. The Vedic instructions guide them according to different regulative principles. And the intelligent people take advantage of these instructions. Thus, they enjoy material life without being disturbed. This is actually illusion. So, what is this Vedic instructions, the Karma Kand part? That, okay, you do this, then you can go to this heavenly planet and you can enjoy in this way. But this is all illusion. Why? Because it's still going to keep us here in the material world. And to get out of this illusion by one's own endeavor is very difficult. What we don't know, we don't know. How can we know something that we don't know? The general populace is engaged in material activities, and when people are a little advanced, they become attracted by the ritualistic ceremonies mentioned in the Vedas. So everyone is busy enjoying sense gratification. Then when one becomes a little pious, one wants to do the pious activities. Oh, let me follow the rules and regulations so that I can get some piety. However, when one is frustrated in the performance of these ritualistic ceremonies, he again comes to material activities. In this way, both the followers of the Vedic rituals and the followers of material activities are entangled in conditional life. So one may follow this karma kand activities, these pious activities which are mentioned, the rituals, But there's frustration in that, how much can we enjoy? There always we enjoy, but then we get frustrated, like, enough, now I don't want anymore, now I need a break. So then again, one comes to material activities. So these people get the seed of devotional service only by the goodwill of the Guru and Krishna. This is confirmed in Caitaniya Caritamita, Guru Krishna Prasade Paya Bhakti Lata Bija. So how can we get the seed of devotional service? We are just wandering about the universe, going about doing our business, wandering one planet to another, one body to another, one species to another. How could we stand any chance? By the mercy of Guru and Krishna, because it's the Guru's desire that let everyone become Krishna conscious. Krishna also obliges with this desire of the devotee, and he gives his mercy to the conditioned soul. And one gets the seed of devotional service by the mercy of Guru and Krishna, mercy of the pure devotee and Krishna. When one is engaged in devotional service, he is no longer attracted to material activities. When a man is covered by different designations, he cannot engage in devotional service. The designations, our upadhis, I am this, I am that, I'm a man, I'm a woman, I'm a human being, I'm an Indian, or I'm Chinese, or whatever designations. Till the time we have these designations, can't engage in pure devotional service. One has to become freed from such designative activities, sarvopadi vinirmuktam, and become pure in order to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead through purified senses. So one has to give up this upadhis, purify himself to come to understand I'm spirit soul, part and parcel of God. So I need to engage in devotional service. Then one engages in devotional service through purified senses, no more material senses. Then that is the stage of liberation, Jivan Mukta. Rishikena Rishikesha Sevanam Bhaktir Uchyate. The service of the Lord through purified senses is called Bhakti Yoga or devotional service. So Rishikena Rishikesha Sevanam Bhaktir Uchyate. Serving the Lord by the senses, purified senses. Engaging the senses in the service of the Lord. This is Bhakti Yoga, devotional service. Engaging the senses, eyes to see the deity of the Lord, ears to hear the glories of the Lord, mouth to chant the glories of the Lord. The sincere devotee is always helped by the Super Soul, who resides within the heart of every living entity, as Lord Krishna confirms in Bhagavad Gita 10.10. You see, in this process, we are not alone. Krishna is there as a Paramatma in our heart. He is guiding us. And outside, he is sending the spiritual master to guide us. And he's giving us the association of devotees. And he's giving us the instructions of Bhagavad Gita. And he has left behind Srimad Bhagavatam. So Krishna is giving help in so many ways. Are we willing to take this help? Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yena mam upayanti te. To those who are constantly devoted to worship me with love, I give the understanding by which they can come to me. So Krishna is saying that he gives the understanding. Krishna gives the knowledge. He's the Paramatma in our heart. So when Krishna sees one is really sincere, then Krishna makes the arrangements. He gives the knowledge by which one can go back to him. To those who are constantly devoted and worship me with love. So to the sincere devotee, one who's always engaged in Krishna's service. This is the stage of becoming free from the contamination of the material world. At such a time, a devotee makes friends with another devotee and his engagement in material activity ceases completely. So this is liberation. Even though he's inside a material body, he's liberated. His consciousness is completely different. Spiritual conscious, Krishna conscious. At that time, he attains the favor of the Lord and loses his faith in material civilization, which begins with Varnashrama Dharma. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu speaks clearly of one's becoming liberated from the Varnashrama Dharma, the most exalted system of human civilization. So Krishna himself has made this Varnashrama Dharma. It is a stepping stone to spiritual life, following the Varnashrama. It's like a stepping stone to bring us to spiritual life, to bring us to Krishna consciousness. We don't have to stick on to only Varnashrama Dharma. So here the pure devotee, we are seeing he's liberated. See, a devotee, his engagement in material activity ceases completely. So whatever he's doing is for the pleasure of Krishna. That's a liberated platform. That's the platform of the soul, because the soul is always active. The soul is always engaged in activity for the pleasure of Krishna. So one can do that even while one has a body, has a material body. And then when one gives up the body, one goes to the spiritual world to serve Krishna in a spiritual body. So at such a time, one feels himself to be perpetually the servant of Lord Krishna, a position taken by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself. Naham vipro nachan narapatir, napi vaishyo na shudro, naham varni nacha grahapatir, no vanastho yatirva. Kintu prodaya nikhila paramananda puranam ratab tabdher, Gopi Bharatu Padakamalayur Dasa Dasa Anudasa. Padyavali 63. Gopi Bharatu Padakamalayur Dasa Dasa Anudasa. I'm not a Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra. I'm not a Brahmachari, Grahast, Vanaprastha, Sannyasi. What am I? I'm the eternal servant of the servant of Lord Krishna. Through the disciplic succession, one can attain this conclusion, which is perfect elevation to the transcendental platform. So, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he himself says that this is the position that we need to come to realize I'm not this body, I'm not Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, Brahmachari, Vanapras, Grahas, or Sannyasi. What am I? I am a servant of the servant of the servant of the servant of Lord Krishna, eternally. Not for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, eternally. And then how can one come to this platform? Engaging in devotional service in the disciplic succession, in the parampara. One can get this conclusion. And this is the perfection of transcendental life. To understand our true reality, our true identity, that is the perfection. To revive our love for Krishna, that's the perfection of human life. The goal of human life, to revive our love. So let's stop here for today. Thank you so much for listening and joining in. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai.